For non-zoning matters. The mayor is the presiding officer. All remarks shall be addressed by the city council as a body, not to individual members. Anyone wishing to speak shall come to the microphone, give their name and address to the city clerk, limit remarks to 3 minutes, unless further time is granted by the council, not speak a second time until everyone wishing to speak has spoken at least once and not more than twice. Please do not speak unless you have the microphone and have been recognized. And with that, I'll call this meeting to order. And who's queuing us up for this? Kathy.
Hey. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This public hearing is for the URA. We're updating the plan. This will be the second amendment of the URA plan, and it's just focused on the URA Area 4, which is around the Hearn property in Dresden Park. The first part is just updating the information that we had, the description on the Hearn property. So initially we thought we could do a lot more with that public park. We've had to reduce that a little bit, so we just added more detail. The Hearn property will have secured access point for public safety personnel with around 70 spaces. Remaining land on the Hearn property will include new recreational park, inclusive of trails, open fields, and park amenities. The public parking lot connecting the public safety facility and park space will serve as a joint parking for the building visitors and park attendees, as well as overflow for Dresden Park. And then the rest of the change has to do with Dresden Park. So the city will enter a long-term lease with a private company to construct a small soccer complex on a portion of Dresden property, and the city may ultimately decide to retain control over the soccer complex if favorable lease terms cannot be negotiated. That's an overview of the changes.
Very good. Any comments from council? Anybody in the audience wishing to speak on this matter?
I do have a comment. It's just really a matter of housekeeping. I would love to have had a printout of that, because all we have, I think, at least all I have on my agenda is Second Amendment to URA plan. Is that in the appendix or something?
There was an attachment of the actual amendment. Do you want me to?
I don't have it. Great. Otherwise, on the surface, it sounds great.
Perfect. John, anything else on that? All right. If I could get a motion to exit the non-zoning matters?
Motion to exit the non-zoning matters portion of this hearing.
Thank you. Second. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
And that's unanimous. All right, we have a public hearing this evening for a zoning matter, and with that, I'll read the order, the rules of order for public hearings. The hearing shall be presided over by the mayor. After calling the hearing to order, the mayor shall request that the parcels of property which are subject to the zoning proposal be identified and read. Following such identification and reading, the development director's recommendation shall be presented. The mayor and city council shall cause the director's written recommendation to be made part of the record. Proponents of each proposed zoning decision shall then be allowed a total of 10 minutes for presentation of data, evidence, and opinion concerning the zoning decision. If all 10 minutes are not used, the proponent's remaining time may be reserved for rebuttal. Opponents of each proposed zoning decision shall then be allowed a total of 10 minutes for presentation of data, evidence, and opinion concerning each zoning decision. The presentation times may not be reduced, but may be extended by majority vote, provided they are expanded equally for proponents and opponents. Anyone wishing to speak must come to the microphone, give their name and address to city clerk, and do not speak unless you have the microphone and have been recognized. And with that, I'll call this to order. And we have public hearing PZ 2020-671, 3631 Claremont Road, Top Capital Car Wash.
Thank
Matt?
you. Mayor Pro Tem and Council, this is a request for 8 variances and a waiver at the intersection of Dresden Drive and Claremont Road. The property is owned CC Corridor Commercial and is about 0.8 of an acre. Next slide, please. In this case, the applicant is requesting variances and waiver related to building a new car wash facility. The variances are listed on your screen. The first few are related to the relation of the building to the street, specifically the treatment of the facades and then the pedestrian access to the building. There are variances related to the location of outdoor storage of equipment related to the car wash services, for parking to exceed the maximum and not have that maximum to be constructed of pervious paving materials. There's also a variance related to the location of the loading zone, and then the waiver is for interparcel connectivity. Next slide, please. Here, the applicant is requesting to demolish the existing vacant gas station building on that lot. In the place of that, they are proposing to construct an approximate 3,400 square foot drive-through conveyor car wash building with parking and vacuum stations at the rear of the site. There are two lots, the corner lot with the gas station, and then next door, the vacant nightclub commercial building is also part of this request. They are proposing some enhanced vegetation to help screen the vacuum stations and storage from the right-of-way. There will be a dumpster on the site, and then the second commercial parcel next to the gas station is mainly where they're accommodating their bypass lane, their drive-through lanes, vehicle queuing, and the pay stations, which you'll see here on the site plan. They do have an underground detention facility, and they are proposing to meet all of the streetscape requirements, both on Claremont and Dresden. This is the aerial photo. Again, you can see the parcels in play here, the two parcels on Dresden and Claremont. Next slide. That's just the survey. Next slide, please. Here is the site plan. So here you can see the conveyor car wash located adjacent to Claremont Road, and then the further north on Claremont would be the main entrance to the car wash with the stacking queuing area, and then the pay stations. Next slide. Just a landscape plan here. You can see the site. They are proposing to meet the city's landscape requirements. Next slide. And then these are the elevations. So here, the top elevation, this is what the building would look like from Claremont, and then the bottom elevation is from Dresden. The top is the rear elevation, and then the bottom is the north side elevation. And they did submit an artist rendering of what the building may look like. Can see here, and then existing photos showing the existing site conditions on the property. Staff has reviewed the request, and based on recommendations in the comprehensive plan and the city's other documents, we are recommending denial of the request. However, if council would like to consider approving, we do have the standard condition that the site be constructed in conformance with the submitted plans. And that is all I have.
Thank you, sir. All right, anybody wishing to speak in favor, come on up to the microphone, give us your name and your address. You'll have 10 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Jeff Carter with Carter Engineering Consultants, representing Top Capital tonight. Thank you. Appreciate that. Sorry about that. So I'm Jeff Carter with Carter Engineering Consultants, representing Top Capital tonight. Oliver Pryor is the owner of Top Capital, and he's seated directly behind me. This is the same ownership group that came before you a few months back for a car wash at 5784 Peachtree Boulevard. If you remember that project, we did everything we could on that project to meet the city standards and city requirements, and we really feel like it's going to be a great addition to the city. It is almost ready to start construction, so you should see that coming out of the ground soon as we get all of our permits. This particular piece of property that we're here tonight to talk about is really similar, has a lot of similarities to that property on Peachtree Boulevard, but it also has some differences. For example, this property is at the intersection of Dresden and Claremont, so it has two property frontages. A corner piece of property, as you know, does present some unique challenges, and we have tried to meet the city code as best that we can. And if you could go to the next slide, please. This is a photograph, or I should say a street view, looking from the racetrack gas station across Claremont. So this is looking directly at the property. As you can see on the right side is an abandoned gas station at the corner of Dresden and Claremont. And then to the left is a lounge. I believe it's called Sephora Lounge. I'm not 100% sure the pronunciation is correct, but that is operational. Currently, there is a 5-foot sidewalk along both street frontages. And I'd also like to point out there are 4 curb cuts on the property currently. If you go to the next slide. This is a view standing at the same location looking across Claremont. And as you can see, it's a very impressive looking building. We have met all of the requirements on Claremont for the city code, and we feel like it's a really good looking building up next to the road. I would like to point out, when we talk about pedestrian safety and things like that, there will be a very large landscape strip from the back of the curb to the sidewalk, a very nice wide sidewalk there, and a lot of enhancements in terms of a plaza area, benches, trash receptacles, all that goes into the streetscape. We're also meeting that same streetscape on Dresden Road, so it'll be a really nice addition in terms of pedestrian safety. We're also taking all 4 of those curb cuts and consolidating them down to 1 curb cut and 1 exit lane. So we feel like from a traffic standpoint, it's going to greatly improve the situation now. And if you go to the next slide, please. So what we did here was we took a bird's eye view, if you will, of the property and the immediate surrounding property. If you look to the left, you've got Claremont Road. In the bottom of the slide there, you've got Dresden. To the right of the property are the self storage mini warehouses that's been there for a while. And then to the north, we wanted to point out that our understanding is that there is a county tag office that is coming online soon, immediately to the north. And so what we did was we superimposed their site plan over this property, just so you'll get an idea of what it's going to look like. There was mention in the staff report of the desire of a mixed use at this intersection. We did, and I wanted to just briefly address that. We did look on the city maps that was provided, and the mixed use encompasses actually several properties along Claremont. It goes several properties north of this, or the subject property. And what we feel like is that it's very difficult, almost impossible, we believe, to get a mixed use on this corner property. First of all, it's 0.8 acres, which is very difficult to get a mixed use on. Secondly, with the approval of the tag office, you've got the tag office to the north, you've got the warehouse property immediately to our right, and then across the street, across Claremont, you've got the racetrack gas station. So we do feel like that this is a very good use of the property. It is, combined with those uses I just mentioned, a very good vehicular use area. And so we really feel like it's a good use of the property. And if you go to the next slide, please. So I really just kind of briefly wanted to go through the variances and why we're asking for the variances. We did attempt to meet all of the city requirements, and one of the challenges that we have, as I mentioned, is that we have two frontages, and so really the first 4 variances have to do with the building facade that faces Dresden. And so if you look at the aerial view there that we have, the red arrow points to that facade that faces Dresden. And the building facade is very much, as you could see from the building elevations, it's very much compatible with the building elevation on Claremont. The issue that we have on the Dresden side is that is the exit to the car wash. So what we did not want to do is have pedestrians walking from Dresden and have a pedestrian door on that building facade, because we felt like that was a safety issue and would not be a good idea. But we do have a pedestrian crosswalk and pedestrian access just to the right of that red arrow, and you can walk from Dresden straight all the way up the page if you're looking at the aerial view, with a nice wide sidewalk. And you can also, of course, come around the corner and you've got the pedestrian plaza area that faces Claremont. So We feel like that's the best scenario. You can access the building from both sides, just not that immediately, that small side there where you see the red arrow. The variances requests 5 through 8 really have to do with the parking area immediately behind the building. And so staff has determined that the vacuum equipment that's related to the car wash is the mechanical equipment. And so what we're asking to do is be able to have that mechanical equipment there, but we're also asking to be able to screen it from Dresden Road. And if you can see on the screen there, you've got the green arrow that kind of points to that area that we're talking about. And here's how we're handling that. We're having significant landscaping in that area, but we're also incorporating green screen into the area between Dresden and the vac spaces. And that came up in our last car wash project that I mentioned on Peachtree Boulevard, and we are incorporating green screen in that project as well. And we feel like it's very suitable. It's a good idea, and we are suggesting that here as well to hide the vac stations. The last item I wanted to point out is the interparcel access. We feel like that the tag office does not have, or that our understanding is that the tag office is not providing interparcel access, which was approved just a few months ago. In front of the tag off, the county tag office, is a detention pond. So to be able to have a, thank you, appreciate that. So you can see the green area there. Our understanding is that's going to remain a detention pond, and we feel like there's really not a possibility for this to happen, quite frankly. The other frontage just to the right on Dresden, we have an exit only coming out of Dresden, and this is very close to the intersection of Claremont. So we can't get a full access there. We don't really want a full access there. And if there was interparcel access at some point in the future, it would create really a traffic nightmare, we believe, because it's so close to the intersection of Claremont Road. So we really feel like that's a safety issue that could potentially happen at some point in the future if the warehouse property was ever redeveloped. So that's it in a nutshell, and I'll be glad to try to answer any of your questions. And I appreciate your time and hope we appreciate your support. Thank you.
Perfect. Got about 1 minute left if anybody else would like to speak in favor. And anybody in opposition. Normally we would address council concerns later on in the agenda, but during COVID we have changed that up a little bit so that we can get folks in and out a little bit quicker. So at this time we would entertain any questions or comments from City Council.
I have some comments about the shared access or between the lots. We're not asking, when we say this, for you to create driveways through and through. We're basically asking you to grant easements so that 15 years from now, 20 years from now, 25 years from now, we don't run into the problem that we keep running into where we don't have easements and then that becomes very expensive for future development. So I understand that there's grade changes, I understand all of those things, but it would be to our best interest and to the whole city's best interest to have those easements recorded. That's the only reason for that. Other than, doesn't mean that you can't have your driveway, doesn't mean that you can't have your parking spaces or anything like that. Just means that 20, 30, 40 years down the road, we don't run into, I'm not going to be around. Mm-hmm. However, future citizens and denizens don't have to face the exorbitant amount of money that people ask for easements, et cetera, the confusion that surrounds those easements and whether they're recorded or not, or whether they were just always been that way, and we should always, we should have them because they've always been that way. So is that, have you based your arguments on expecting that we think that you're going to put driveways through, or are you basing your arguments on you just don't want to give up the right to that property.
I understand your point, and I would suggest to you that the easement to the tag office, I can understand that issue on that. The issue on the Dresden Road frontage, I see that as a safety issue. Even when that property is developed, would create more traffic so close to Claremont. So I think we would be fine with the one on the tag office. I can understand it. Maybe it never happened, but the easement will be there. But I just would have a hard time on Dresden.
Okay,
But
I accept your explanation.
thank you.
Otherwise, by the way, I don't want you to think in any way, shape, or form that I don't think this is a good project, because I do.
Thank you.
I think it's a good project.
Thank you very much.
Any other comments, concerns from council?
Yeah, I want to re-emphasize what Leslie had to say. She stole part of my thunder. That was one of the things I was going to say, exactly what she said. And I'll have to look at that too before I make my decision on which way I want to vote. The other thing is the outside storage. And I know you explained on what you intend to do, but it still leaves a little open-endedness as far as, is what's restricted. So I would maybe ask you to maybe include some language, or maybe send me through the email some language that you might be comfortable with, that kind of narrows what you intend to have as your outdoor storage, and then what you intend to do about it, so I can include that in there. I know it's in the site plan, but it's not quite the same thing. And I don't want you to be able to say, oh, well, we can put a dumpster out there because we have out storage, even though we didn't tell you couldn't. But so I just want to narrow it a little bit. It seems a little open-ended in my opinion.
Okay, that's no problem at all. I'll be glad to do that.
In response to the easement comments, one thing some folks have done in the past is to authorize a one-way easement. So as you're looking at Dresden, that might be something to consider that might benefit you as well, as you leave the vacuum stations towards that warehouse space that might ultimately, if that redevelops, give your customers another point of egress as well. So not suggesting anything either way, but an easement doesn't necessarily imply that it's two-way access. So just something to think about.
And I think we would be okay with our concern would be future traffic coming onto the site trying to exit, but not the other way. So I didn't think about that, but we would be fine with that.
Anything else?
I have one question. It's probably for Matt. Hi, you can't see me behind the podium. Hi, I'm Karen. Hi, it's nice to finally see you.
Yeah, nice to see you.
You will be providing excess of 110% of the required number of parking spaces, but you're looking for a variance to making those extra ones permeable. How many parking spaces are we talking about? Making them permeable? I mean, is it 2 or is it 8?
Is that me or?
That was for Matt, actually, if Matt knows it.
So they can have 17 parking spaces, and they're proposing 20, so that 3 of those would have to be pervious in order to meet the code.
Okay, and where those would need to be pervious, that's not an area where cars, this is for you, let me make eye contact here, hi. Where those spaces would need to be, that's not where cars are being actually washed, like chemicals and all that kind of crap going into the ground?
Yes, we would do the employee spaces. Yes.
Oh, okay.
There are 3 of those, so we
Right.
would do pervious for those 3.
Okay, thank you very much.
But just to clarify, they're requesting a variance to not provide any pervious.
Right, I didn't know whether
Gotcha.
it was a variance that, applied to 10 spaces or to 3,
It would be the 3, yes.
If you don't provide pervious, that water would still be captured and treated per
Yes.
city requirements.
Yes, absolutely.
Right, okay.
I have one other comment.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Ask about this, since we were on the pervious, impervious, and 3 spaces that Karen asked. Are we saying we're not requiring those 3 spaces to be impervious, or we are?
You're asking for a variance.
I know you asked for a variance, but you specifically said those 3 spaces were going to be impervious. So I didn't know if you had a plan, or as a backup plan, or that's something you can work around, or what's? Our
opinion for a car wash is not good practice to have pervious pavement. Honestly, this variance request is not a big sticking point for us. We can make those 3 pervious if the council just feels like that's what we got to do. We don't really have a problem with that. Honestly, the variance was something that we just feel like is a good idea because it's 3 spaces, it's a car wash, it's not a retail strip where it's a little more conducive to that type of thing. But honestly, it's not a big sticking point for us.
Okay, great, thanks.
However, in the event that you were to sell this car wash to somebody else, we would want to be sure that those spaces would be designated as parking spaces for employees and not spaces where soap and stuff like that could, be put into the thingy.
Yeah.
And the only other comment that I have to make is this. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for including the Sephora quote-unquote lounge in this property. I will be glad to see that eyesore go.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Anything else? All right. So again, this item is still on the agenda for later in the session, but it will not be discussed any further this evening. It'll come back up on Tuesday. All right.
Thank you very
And
much.
can I get a motion to exit the public hearing?
Motion to exit public hearing.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Thank you, ma'am. And with that, we'll take a 30-second recess to allow anybody that was here for the public hearing to exit quietly.
Holy moly. Are you serving me? No.
All right, and we'll call this meeting to order. City Council Public Hearing Work Session, October the 15th. We have no announcements and presentations for this evening. Under City Clerk, we have the approval of the minutes for the City Council Public Hearing Work Session, September the 10th. Anybody have any changes or anything to that? City Council Regular Meeting, September the 15th. Anybody? City Council called meeting September the 21st. Very good. Item number 2, we have a creation of a Board of Ethics. With consent of council, we'll move this till Tuesday evening.
I concur.
Thank you. And number 3, we have a resolution to modify the 2020 fee schedule and extension of the renewal deadline for massage and spa. And I guess, John, you're handling that this evening?
I can do that. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. This resolution would essentially push the deadline for massage and spa applications by 1 month to November 30th. They're currently due at the end of October. And one of the reasons for that is we have had some question as to how to move forward with the fingerprinting of applicants. And we have added, as part of this resolution, added back into the fee, the application fee, the the fee for the fingerprinting service. So that is why you have this resolution, which both moves the date back by 1 month and also increases the fee to include that for fingerprinting.
Perfect. Any questions from council?
Nope.
All right, that will move to Tuesday. Under the Development Department, we have item number 2, Tree Fund Ordinance Amendment. Matt?
Yes, Mayor and Council, the city manager had asked us to look into options to potentially expand the use of tree bank money. We have about $225,000 in there. I shouldn't say about, I think I probably have the right amount, but $225,000 is the amount in the tree bank ordinance, or in the tree bank fund. And if you recall, we've had several DCIs approved recently that are going to pay even more money into that account. And with really limited areas that we can use the money based on the current ordinance, which limits it to city-owned planting trees on city property. So it's really parks and on streetscapes. Well, a lot of that's being done, as you know, through other projects and through developers. So what we're proposing here is expanding the ordinance to allow it to be used not only for planting trees, but also to purchase land where trees can be saved, purchase park land, and to potentially use money for park-related improvements. So we have a draft resolution for you all to consider. We could leave it the same if you prefer. We could move forward with the recommendation of staff or amend it in some other way as you direct.
Questions from council?
I think I would want park improvements to be limited to planted materials of some sort, not trash cans and whatever. I mean, it's kind of a tree, and you're supposed to be saving trees and producing oxygen and home for animals, all that good stuff. So it probably should stay in, even if it's other things besides trees, it probably should be planted materials. Anybody else agree?
I agree with that. I'd also like to see us, parks, natural areas, butterfly gardens, designated wildlife habitats, and things like that are big tourist attractions, believe it or not. And I think that we have the potential in our city to address that and go after those tourist dollars as well. So I would like to be sure that included in this ordinance change that we can perhaps pick sites that the city owns that can be upgraded for those purposes. Plant material, of course. Plant material and landscaping only.
Okay.
Good point. Anything else? So you have direction on that, Matt?
I do.
Thank you. All right.
Oh,
nothing
one
other-
last question. Sorry, it just
ahead.
popped into my hot little head. Would this amendment allow for any of the money to be used to enhance future rail trail stuff, or do we need to use the funds that are already being?
We can already
enhanced?
use it that way.
Okay.
For planted material.
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. That was the point of what you said. Sorry. Well, I missed that, didn't I? Pardon
Karen,
me.
you got to start listening, darling.
Yeah, sorry.
I have to say that I'm disappointed in some of the stuff that has been done along our rail trails, specifically the portion that goes from Keswick Park underneath Peachtree Boulevard. I would like to have seen that become something a whole lot more in keeping with our times, which is a wildlife attractant, et cetera, et cetera. There's so many different ways that can be done. And while I certainly applaud the old growth forest in the ravine behind the soccer fields in Keswick, that's fabulous. I think that even that can be enhanced with native plants. And that, believe it or not, bird watchers spend a lot of money in places that they go. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about enhanced tourism product. And so but I wouldn't, of course, want to do that without having a substantial plan in place for it, but that would be a great use of those funds.
Very good. Item number D, under Police Department, we have nothing. Parks and Rec, nothing. Under Finance, we have budget amendments. Is this John or Kristen? There she is. Woo-hoo. Come on down.
Sorry. Good evening. We've got several budget amendments. Most of these are from discussion topics that we heard from you all at the September budget meeting, inclusive of hazard pay for public safety employees. We're also officially allocating that CARES Act funds that we received from DeKalb County. So you see that allocation there in the transfer into the general fund and will reimburse for public safety personnel expenses. And I believe that the total amount that we will be pulling from reserves on this is $711,677.
711,677.
And that also includes the funds from the previous meeting where we approved moving forward with the consulting services for the architectural services.
Yes, that's correct.
Very good. Any questions from council? Comments? Good job.
Thank you.
Under Public Works this evening, we have nothing. Economic Development, we have the second amendment for the URA plan. Catherine, everybody's getting to come on down tonight.
Back again for the same thing. So this is what you heard during the first public hearing.
Right.
Feel free to ask any questions.
Nothing to add. Boards, authorities, and committees, nothing under city attorney tonight. We have 2 second reads, the annexation of Caldwell Road and the rezoning of Caldwell Road, and those will move to Tuesday. And under mayor and council items this evening, we have 1 item under Councilwoman Lupton, the Airport Advisory Board Amendment Proposal. Take it away, Karen.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I was approached by a few citizens who serve on the AAB. There is one post 9 in that on that commission that has traditionally been filled by a citizen from Chamblee. They wish to see this put kind of in writing and made a little bit more formal. So this is a resolution to simply provide for that we are encouraging the Airport Advisory Board to modify their bylaws. It should read, what I've got is an updated wording. It's not exactly what's in our packet right now, but it should read, Post 9, the City of Chamblee shall appoint a resident of the city, subject to confirmation by majority vote of the Board of Commissioners, with the concurrence of the Chief Executive Officer. So that's what it should read. And I've talked with some of you about this, individually. I don't know if anybody has any questions, comments, headaches about it.
Very good, Mr. Lupton. Appreciate you. So, for the record, there's 2 words just being added. That's a resident of the city instead of just a resident, correct?
I don't have the wording
That's fine.
that it is right now. I don't even know if the City of Chamblee is in the original wording.
No worries. Any other questions from council on this? Very good. That will move to Tuesday. Citizen comments. Don't everybody rush to the microphone at once.
Bueller.
Exactly. I believe we did have some comments that were emailed to us, and that will be entered into the record. Do we have an executive session this evening? We do not. Very good. So we are out of here. Thank you, guys.
Record time. Thanks, everybody.